Hello and welcome back to 10 Strategies to Thrive in Tough Economic Times. I'm Chris Mahan with Chris Mahan Consulting. We've been spending the last few days together looking at strategies and tips that you can begin to implement in your business immediately to see an increase in your revenue and in your profits. So far, we've looked at strategies to help you generate more leads, how to increase your conversion rate, and how to lead your customers to do business with you more often. In today's topic, we're going to talk about how to get your customers to spend more with you in each transaction. However, before I do that, do you remember early in one of our sessions, we looked at a profit growth calculator? We took a business, a fictional business, and we plugged in some numbers, and I showed you how increasing each of the 5 areas that we're discussing in this series, how if you increase each of them by 10%, this business would increase their revenue considerably. Now, let me ask you this, though. What happens if you don't increase all 5 areas, but you just increase one area? Now, we didn't show that on the profit growth calculator, but let's say that we took just one of these 5 areas. In this particular case, we're going to look at the amount that each customer spent on a transaction. Remember, in our fictional business, that was $100. And we increased that by 10% so that the amount that they spent each time was 110. The result for that business, if just increasing that one thing by 10%, would provide that business with an additional $25,000. What are the possibilities? That's what I really want you to see. So you remember that in our example, we had 1,000 leads and that business had a 25% conversion rate. So that meant that they had 250 customers. Each of those 250 customers did an average of 10 transactions a year. That's 2,500 transactions. So you multiply 2,500 transactions by the $100 that they were spending on average at each one of those transactions. That made their income $250,000. But if we just increase that one area by 10%, where instead of only spending $100 in each transaction, they're going to spend $110. What happens? 2,500 transactions times $110 is $275,000. That's a 10% increase in revenue. But we're not looking for a 10% increase. We're looking for a minimum of 25% increase. So how is this accomplished? It's accomplished by implementing these strategies in each of these 5 areas. By increasing each area, we have a compounding effect on our revenue. Let me explain that to you. For instance, if we were to only increase the number of transactions a customer engaged in over the course of a year by 10%, it would result in a 10% increase in annual revenue. That's 250 customers times 11 transactions a year. That's 2,750 transactions. Multiply that by $100 that they spend on average, and that's $275,000. But what happens if we increase both the number of transactions and the amount spent in each of those transactions? And we did so by 10%, each of them. That would mean that now we have 2,750 transactions times $110, which is $302,500. That's an additional $52,000 in annual revenue, which is a 21% increase. Now, you would have expected a 20% increase in revenue because you were increasing 2 areas by 10%. But the effect of compounding leads to an additional 1% increase. So now let's see what happens if you increase 3 of the areas by 10%. Again, you would expect a minimum of a 30% increase, right? You're increasing 3 areas by 10%. Well, the actual increase would be 1,100 leads times a 25% conversion rate. That's 275 customers. 275 customers times 11 transactions a year. That's 3,025 transactions. 3,025 transactions by $110 is a total annual revenue of $332,750. That is an increase not of 30%, but of 33.1%. Now, what I want you to see here is that very much like compounding interest when it comes to money, the effect of these small changes to your business, when implemented together, compound the result. That's why I encourage you to start by implementing just one of these strategies we've covered in this series, and then add additional strategies as you can so that you can increase the percentage of your additional revenue. Now, in this session, we're going to look at two strategies to encourage your customers to spend more with you in each transaction. Bundling is a strategy which most all of us are acquainted with. Thank you to the insurance companies that are always encouraging us to bundle our homeowners and car insurance. Now, even though it's a strategy that is very familiar, I still find many small business owners never see how this strategy might be useful in their business. Now, bundling is simply the process of grouping together certain products and/or services to create packages that are sold to clients and customers. Again, we look to McDonald's, who seem to pave the way for all fast food restaurants to offer combo meals. Now, how could an upscale restaurant bundle their products? I mean, yeah, McDonald's can get away with it, but what about an upscale restaurant? Well, remember, the objective of this strategy is twofold. First, and vitally important, is offering something so the customer feels they are getting a great value for the actual amount of money they're spending. Component, or the second objective that this strategy has, is to put money in your pocket. So here is an example of how a restaurant used this strategy of bundling in such a way that they could accomplish both of those objectives. Restaurant 1 initiated a 25% off coupon for their popular $40 steak dinner, and they distributed the coupons through the newspaper and other local publications. Customers could go to the restaurant, order the $40 steak dinner, and when they checked out, present the coupon, receive 25% off of their meal so that they only paid $30. Their customers received a perceived value of $40 while just spending $30. Now, Restaurant 2 used the bundling strategy instead. They offered the same steak dinner for $40. However, they bundled that meal with a bottle of wine and a dessert. Now, that bottle of wine was listed on their menu for $25 and the dessert for $6. So customers who chose restaurant number 2 got the same steak meal plus a bottle of wine plus a dessert for just $40. So customers who chose restaurant 2 paid an additional paid an additional $10 for their meal. But the people that went to restaurant number 1 and used the coupon received a $40 value after spending $30. So while patrons of restaurant number 2 received a $71 value when they only spent $40. So restaurant 1, it seemed like you were getting a great deal for $10. You were getting an additional $10 worth of value. Restaurant number 2, you were getting an additional $31 in value. So let me ask you, if all things were equal and you were going to choose one of these two restaurants, which one would you choose? The one where you feel like you received an additional $10 in value, or the one where you received an additional $31 in value? Most people would choose restaurant number 2. But now perhaps you're asking how restaurant number 2 could afford this. Because remember, the objective of this strategy is not only to make the customer feel like they're getting a great deal, which was obviously achieved, but it needs to add money to your profit. So let's see if they achieve that objective as well. Now, restaurant number 1 is operating with a profit margin of 35%. So that means this steak dinner cost the restaurant $26 to provide. So when they sold it at the discounted price of $30, they were making $4 on each sale. Now, restaurant number two is also operating with a 35% profit margin on the steak dinner. However, that bottle of wine, which they normally sell for $25, only costs them $8 wholesale. And that piece of pie that they have on their menu for $6 costs them $1. So the cost to restaurant number two is $26 for the steak dinner, plus an additional $9 for the wine and the pie, making their total cost $35. When they sell that combo meal for $40, their profit per meal is $5, which, if you remember, is 25% more than their competitor, restaurant number one, is making. Restaurant number one's profit was $4. Restaurant number two's profit was $5. So the answer is yes, their bundle not only provided great value to their customers, it also increased their profit. But what about some other examples? Let's consider a photographer, a florist, and a landscaper. Now, what kind of bundles might they make? Now, the photographer typically offers a photo package. It includes a sitting fee and a certain number of images from the session. What if he or she bundled such things as enlargements, photo albums, even a DVD with all the session photos? Those are fairly inexpensive items for the photographer, but they may be perceived as an added value to the customer. The florist could bundle things like cards, gifts, even something like flower preservatives. A landscaper, once they created a wonderful landscape for their customers, could offer a garden maintenance kit to help them keep their flower garden looking great. The bundle might include things like gloves, a rake, a spade, or even more. So, as you think about your business, what kind of products or services do you offer that could be bundled? Make a quick list right now while it's fresh in your mind, and then you can flesh it out at a later time and begin to implement your ideas. Bundling makes your customers and clients feel like they are getting more value for the money they spend, and it provides you with additional profit. In a previous session where we identified strategies to help you increase your conversion rate, we spoke of a strategy called downselling. Now, that's if you're pretty certain that this customer or client that's standing in front of you is going to walk away without making a purchase, you might entice them to purchase something with a lower price tag, something that is a smaller quantity or a lower, lesser quality. Well, the next strategy for getting your clients to spend more in each transaction involves the opposite of downselling. The second strategy is actually a combination of two strategies. The first is called upselling. The second is cross-selling. Now, we all know what upselling is, right? Would you like to supersize that? Would you like to supersize your order for just $1 more? You know, McDonald's significantly increased their revenue when they first started teaching their team members to ask that question. Then they further increased their profit when they started teaching their team to ask a second question. Would you like an apple pie with that? That's what's known as cross-selling. Now, upselling is simply offering a higher grade, a higher quality, or a larger size of a product. Something that, again, must be of interest to your customer when they are ready to buy. Cross-selling is when you offer additional products or services that complement the item or service that the customer is already ready to buy. Now, it is a conservative estimate that 34% of prospects will buy additional products or services at the time of their original purchase if they are asked to. If you are not teaching your sales staff to ask these questions, you may very well be leaving money on the table with every transaction. So, the success of these strategies begins with businesses bringing people in the door. I mean, you have to have a face to face or an online experience. You have to be able to put yourself in front of the customers before you can even ever hope to upsell or cross sell. So, the success of these strategies begins by bringing people through the door. So, how do you do that? Let me show you a few successful examples of upselling and cross selling. Now, I don't think a dentist would have much success at trying to get their customers to buy a product that prevents Bluetooth. Call me crazy, whatever. But what products or services could they use to upsell and cross sell? Well, somewhere in the neighborhood of 85% of the US population has some form of medical insurance, but only 50% of those have some form of dental insurance. So, of those who do not have dental insurance, 44% say that's the reason that they don't visit the dentist unless it's an emergency, because they don't have insurance and they know it's going to cost them more. Now, if you're a savvy dentist, you can see an opportunity here, an opportunity that the big opportunity that this presents for you and your practice. You would see this as an opportunity to tap into an underserved population. You could specifically target those who do not have dental insurance. Prospects would be more likely to consider going to you if you offered the exact same services for the same cost that's being paid by the customers who do have dental insurance. So, do you see the win-win here? The uninsured client has the opportunity to obtain preventative dental care and basic services for the same cost paid by those who have insurance, but they're not paying that hefty monthly insurance bill. Dentist, he wins in two ways. First, he or she is making money off clients who, under normal circumstances, would never have patronized their business. Second, because when that client is there in the chair, she has the opportunity to upsell her more expensive and lucrative services, as well as the opportunity to cross sell over the counter dental products like teeth whitening solutions. Let me show you an ad that was developed for a dentist in New Jersey. This brought new clients into his practice, enabling this dentist to upsell and cross sell to people he normally wouldn't have come in contact with. And let's go ahead and visit our restaurant friends again. Now, for most restaurants, their highest profit margin offerings are wine, appetizers, and desserts. So, one restaurant that put the strategy of cross selling into place trained their wait staff to take 3 carts around to the tables they serviced. The first cart was the wine cart. It was taken to the table shortly after the party was seated. The server would describe some of the house favorites and make some recommendations. Remember, just asking people to buy increases the number who do. The second cart was taken around after drinks had been served and while the party was still looking over their menu. This cart contained samples of the restaurant's appetizers. Samples were provided to the table, and then the server would ask, "Which one did you enjoy the most? Can I put in an order for you?" The third cart was the dessert cart. As the party was finishing up their meal, this cart would be brought out. Again, samples would be offered, and the server would ask if they would like to place an order for any of the desserts. This strategy increased the sales of these items by more than 15%. And remember, these are the items for restaurants that carry the highest profit margin. Now, here's how a restaurant implemented an upsell policy. When the servers would provide the menu to the patrons, they would take a moment to highlight some of the main courses. They would especially highlight the more expensive ones. Many upscale restaurants have their servers sample the dishes that are available each evening, so those servers can share with their patrons how delicious they found those dishes to be. Now, in the example before us, the server would highlight the $45 filet Oscar. The percentage of patrons who took the server's recommendations was significant enough to make this a profitable strategy for this restaurant. Now, remember, the key to the success of the upsell cross sell strategy is training. Your sales staff needs to be effectively trained to make these opportunities available to your customers and clients. Now, how can you implement these strategies in your business? You begin by asking these three questions. What other products and or services could you offer your customers when they have shown they are ready to buy your primary product or service? The second question is, do you currently package products or services that are complementary to one another? And the third is, what additional items could you package with your primary product or services that would increase the perception of value in the eyes of your clients and your customers? So there they are. Not just two, but three strategies you can use to implement immediately to begin to increase your revenue by enabling your customers and clients to spend more with you at each transaction. Now, in our final session for 10 strategies for thriving in tough economic times, we're going to examine some ways that you can increase your profit margin. So before I go, I want to say congratulations. You've almost made it all the way through these sessions. I look forward to buttoning things up in our last session together. Until then, this is Chris Mahan of Chris Mahan Consulting. How can I serve you?